Thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us Tuesday, September 3 at 8 p.m., then you're watching us live. Our show tonight is gun violence in the U.S. Gun violence in the U.S., because this is the U.S., right? And what do we have, Moses?
We have a lot of gun violence.
We have a lot of gun violence, and tonight we're going to talk about it, and we have different ideas on how to go about this. And Moses, you've also been meeting with or talking with some of the group leaders in this issue.
There are, and you know, Oregon is because of shootings that have occurred here in Oregon, down in southern Oregon and up at Clackamas and such, and the one that was just recently prevented. There's a real good core of youth activism here in Oregon for common sense gun safety legislation, and they really pressed the issue down in the Oregon State Legislature this last session. And you'll remember that they had some legislation included some
magazine.
It was for in regards to guns storage.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And there were some other aspects, but point is that they had to take that part of it out as part of the grand deal with the Republican Party to get the other legislation.
Because they're freaking jerks.
Right.
They're freaking jerks.
So they know it's on the radar. They know it's an issue that's polling at 70%, and it's an issue that's being led by people being directly affected by the violence, and that's our youth. I mean, it's amazing and inspirational in a very, very sad and solemn way that these youth are getting out there and being motivated to go be activists and to try to make some sense of this so that they can have a safe school environment.
When I was born in '49, which makes me a couple of months older than you, but we had nothing like this in my growing up.
Right.
I mean, nothing, even going through college and so on, too. This is all crazy, but you have the shooter drills in school, and politicians pretend this stuff is natural. But kids have serious problems with bad dreams, with sleep, afraid of school. They hate school. So you have suicide. You have self-mutilation now, too. And a lot of it probably is driven in part from the fear that this brings about. It's just awful.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot there in that statement, that we could focus on. But let me just focus on one thing. The PTSD that occurs with their youth in the after a shooting and in the preparation for a shooting. Like my daughter is at a local high school in Portland, and there had been a scare, a lockdown, and so, but it was erroneous. It was proven false. But just the fact of going through the fear and the emotion and the anticipation and the anxiety of the circumstance, I mean, we shouldn't be doing that to our children. I mean, as I say, even if we're just looking at it through the spectrum of our youth, in their future, it's just amazing to me. Let alone the random acts of violence that have been just proliferating of late.
Mothers, for instance, I mean, afraid for their kids to go to school safely, and shooting somewhere, and you worry about your youngster too. It's awful. If we want to scare kids, let's wait to Halloween, and then we can scare them and give them candy, and everything's safe.
Right. But, I mean, I remember just Halloween, for instance. I mean, I'm old enough to remember a Halloween where we would eat unpackaged food. People would make pie or make Rice Krispie treats, and then there is a scare about somebody sticking a razor blade in an apple.
Never happened.
Like that.
Never
really happened.
Hypodermic syringes in apples. Never happened.
And it's definitely based off of that whole fear mongering of what could happen.
Are you afraid yet? Are you really, really afraid?
Right.
Yeah, nonsense.
And unfortunately now that same mentality is happening in our schools with our youth when it comes to violence with guns.
Well, in Texas, remember the Abbott, we're talking about Abbott and what happened after Odessa. And Abbott loosened up the gun laws. I guess there are about 6 or 8 laws in Texas that he loosened up the same day, as you pointed out.
Well, it was just really poor timing on his half. He didn't schedule the shooting properly, I guess. The idea was that they were passing legislation to allow even more access.
Have guns on campus,
and in hospitals and wherever you can go in Texas, you can carry a gun. Okay,
churches now, too. A lot of churches, yes.
And, when it comes down to this whole issue, I always look at this through the spectrum of someone who is a hunter I grew up, I spent a lot of time in Wyoming and in the Rocky Mountain area in Salt Lake City. And back when I was growing up, you would have your rifle on your back window in your truck, you know, and you would go hunting. In Wyoming, school was let out for a week in fall so that you could go hunting with your family, with the men in the family would usually go, sometimes women, I'm sure. Point being is that you'd be getting your food for the year, you know, your freezer meat. And so that's a totally different environment than in the urban environment, like here in Portland, where there was just a shooting just the other day of a kid.
What was that about? Do you remember?
I think he was a PSU student or a PCC student, you know, in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, incredible. There was a big, interesting series of changes in the NRA following the Rodney King dust-up, you know, and you had riots as well. At that point, NRA started saying, oh, no, this isn't for hunting. This is not for marksmanship. It's to protect yourselves against certain classes of people. So you're going to defend your family with all this stuff. And then that really put the emphasis for NRA on steroids, on speed.
Oh, absolutely. But what happened is that the NRA became a professional political action committee and nonprofit. Tasked solely to make money off of the fear of losing guns and Second Amendment rights. You know, just ginning up the base.
When Obama was elected, you know, they were so afraid of guns being stolen and, I mean, taken out of their hands, so they
Oh, absolutely. But now let's point this out, though. The NRA used to be an organization of good. When I was growing up, you would have to you would get a gun permit, you get a gun license, training through the NRA, and you would know how to handle the gun and have respect for it and knew how to load and unload it and to store it, and that was encouraged. And you took pride in that fact. And you would go to, they'd had shooting tests, big, you know, gatherings where they would have shooting tests, and you'd go, you have national competitions. I mean, that's when the NRA was an organization truly for the people that own guns, you know, helping them. But, you know, I'd venture to say within the last 40, 50 years, it became a cash cow for a lot of people, to be a lot of political consultants, and definitely the
power brokers too.
Power brokers.
You know, if they say to the Republicans, you know, these guys they're true patriots.
Oh, it's awful. I mean,
Democrats, I hate them. You know, they're weak on crime.
Right, and it has everything to do with protecting the gun manufacturers' profits. Everything to do, and not your rights. Your rights are codified in the Constitution, for goodness sake.
Well, I mean, you know, some interpretations of them.
Right, but my point is we don't need the NRA to represent gun owners. If they had stayed neutral, maybe, but they have not.
No, good point. You know, we're going to take a look, unfortunately, at some of the pictures of what happens to bodies when they are hit by bullets, and pretty damn gruesome. Really, I mean, but we should take a look at what happens when the bullet meets a body. What you want to, Marv? You want to play that? Yeah, here we are. Warning: graphic images of gunshot wounds. Why don't you go with what happens when one hits your bicep, number one, or a kid's bicep?
Oh, these are graphic.
Yeah, they are graphic. Yeah, it's not in the movies. There we go. Look at that. In the movies, you know, it's not a big deal. Maybe get up and walk away. No one's going to walk away from that thing.
My God.
And number two, in the face. Now, this is awful as well. But that's, you know, we don't see that. Senators don't see that. Representatives don't see that. Families don't see that. This is what can happen.
Well, you know, here, let's take that down for right now.
Sure. All right. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty...
Shocking.
It's a shocking point that you just made, Caleb, and I salute you for doing that, because I think it's really easy for us to be blinded to the real realities of what gun violence is doing to people on an individual level and on a societal level. I mean, my gosh, that's somebody's son.
Yes.
That's somebody's daughter.
Yep.
And to have these random acts of violence occur that could be prevented.
Well, your kid, my kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so easy to forget that everybody that is killed or is hurt or injured in any of these type of events is loved by someone, has a family. And those graphic images, I think, drive the point home. So if that's upsetting to you as a viewer, I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
Texas, there was a Texas legislature who said, support guns like the Bible tells us to. Screw them. I mean, if his family got visited by these goddamn bullets, I mean, they're not in the Bible as far as I can tell. It's just nonsense.
No. And see, that's the conflagration of the Christianity political movements and the NRA and the Second Amendment right movements kind of coming together, and you get the GOP power brokers that create PACs and organizations, AstroTurf organizations, not grassroots organizations, but AstroTurf, fake ones, to be able to tap into that populist outrage, that they're doing. It's just,
Well, the people carrying the guns and so on too, nice white shirts, nicely dressed, and all this other stuff, and we just have to defend our rights and so on. No, this is what happens when bullets meet bodies, when bullets meets kids, when bullets meets husbands, wives, grandparents, and so on too.
Right. And let's get into this for a second. At least we can expand upon it a little bit later.
Sure.
I think there's two aspects to me, at least to me. There are two things that need to be looked at when it comes to curbing gun violence, and that is common sense gun safety legislation, rules and regulations, legislation, making people more accountable when it comes to their safety of their gun. And that includes licensing or if not licensing, making sure education, and that also includes
Background.
learning how to use the darn thing. Making sure that you're having respect for it. So I think so that you have those two sides to it. You have the guns themselves, and then you have gun safety legislation that can help to alleviate the immediate problem, that keeping the gun out of the hands of someone that will use it maliciously. Let's put it that way. Like domestic abusers here in Oregon, a law was just passed in Salem, allowing for more scrutiny of those, and denial of guns for those
violent offenders, domestic violence, and so on. Terrific, good for them.
Right.
That's one of the best predictors.
Isn't that a great example of gun safety legislation, common sense gun safety legislation, keeping it out of the hands of the right people?
Well, then again, you had Trump, of course, who repealed a law that Obama had put in place, saying that if you were on disability for severe mental health reasons, you shouldn't have access to guns. But Trump rolled that back, of course. Jesus Christ.
Because it had Obama's name on it?
Yep. Yeah. In terms of some of the changes I'd like to see are doing away with new automatic weapons. Yeah. And that is that every time you pull a trigger, a bullet goes off. When the country was founded, it would take you 90 seconds or 2 minutes to load a blunderbuss. I mean, the old flintlock. Well, not bullet, but the flintlock. And now we have these things that can just detonate really quickly. Even up in Chicago, Dayton, I guess, a lot of shots were fired off by this person. And not only the guy in Las Vegas with a bump stock, but it just, if you pull a trigger really quickly and you get off 30 shots really fast, especially with a big magazine, you can kill a hell of a lot of people. That is not in the Constitution.
Well, on the way over here, I was pondering a fact that it's easier for the civilians to acquire guns than it is for people within the military.
Yeah, good for you. Good
and
point.
In the military, you're not receiving a gun on day one. You're getting that gun after a background check is done, after training and understanding of how to use the gun is completed, and then only then do you get it. Like an example was given to me just before the show of during training, basic training, you're doing individual shots, and that's the last time in any other to practice target shooting, but if you after that you're given a mock gun, a fake gun. for other drills and training. So they're restricting the amount of use of the live weaponry because they have a healthy respect for it and they realize it can kill people.
Well, so on bases, they secure the firearms.
Right.
People do not wander around, and people on base do not have a gun in their closet. They're locked up, they're secured. And we think we're going to be the military like that. And the military would never permit people to have access to firearms on the base.
Well, once again, it's a healthy respect for it. And I mean, it's like with the AK-47s and the automatic, semi-automatic and automatic weapons. Those are kind of you got to watch your definitions there. It's basic. A semi-automatic is a
Pull one shot. Pull one shot. Yeah.
Right, one bullet at a time based on how fast you can pull the trigger. An automatic is one where you just pull the trigger and it just shoots out a whole bunch of bullets.
Or three or something like that that runs.
Every couple of seconds. And now you can adapt the semi-automatics to become automatics through what they have those bump stocks and other means to be able to automate that up faster.
There are also parts that fit in the rifle that trigger automatic, making an automatic rifle as well, too.
And that's, okay, that's fine. That's wonderful information about guns, and I'm sure they're a lot of fun to shoot in the proper setting. You know, but the proper setting is because we have allowed so much access of these military-type assault rifles, killing machines that are highly regulated within the military, allowed them into our general public. You have people that have not have the respect for them and are using them to play out to
male fantasy figures. I mean,
right.
Hey, I'm going to take on the world. I'm top of the world.
And
Mom.
then you have Trump spurring on
hatred,
white supremacists and the whole racism thing, and you overlay this very low, easy access to assault rifles. I mean, it's like you're putting tinder in a fire.
Letting kids play with matches.
Right.
I mean, it's going to happen.
I mean, you wonder why. My goodness, all of these recent shootings have been done by white men that have adopted the white nationalist attitude and philosophies, quoting Trump in many of their manifestos.
No, I agree.
Quoting Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Pittsburgh shooter and the El Paso shooter. Yeah.
The point of all of this is that we have created this tinderbox of opportunity for these people that do not need guns to be able to get guns. And so the whole basis of all of this movement of late, of common sense, gun safety legislation, is meant to help reduce that violence.
Well,
Pure and simple. Has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. I think, quite frankly, it strengthens the Second Amendment because it makes those people respect their availability even more so.
Well, you know, Mark, Moses, in the best of all possible worlds, I would like to have, if people have guns, to have limited capacity, maybe 6 bullets or less that the weapon can fire. But we sure as hell don't need 30 or 40 or 50, you know, changeable banana clips or whatever you want. I mean, there's no reason for self-protection. You need more than 6 shots.
Right.
If you need more than 6, you're up to no good. Captain McChrystal, who was head of Afghanistan Army over there, said these are weapons of war. AK-40, the high-velocity weapons that 223s are weapons of war. They do not belong on the streets. He's a goddamn general, and he knows what he's talking about. He's seen many bodies. But, you know, I get rid of the high-capacity magazines, also the high-speed bullets that come out, because they really chew the hell out of flesh.
Well, you know, I've heard an interesting proposal, and that is for states to tax the sale of ammunition, and then in turn use that money for positive things related to education, gun education, blah, blah, blah. You know, the idea of making it a palatable tax. Now, of course,
Julian Castro suggested that.
Yeah. Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Did he really?
Yep.
I don't know if you folks can see this. Marv, is it possible you can do a focus on this? I don't mean to get off topic here, but I've been collecting political
buttons and stuff.
Swag from all of the political presidential candidates, Democratic presidential candidates so far this year. And I've received everything from a baseball cap with Marianne Williamson's name on it.
Cool. Does it make you feel light up there?
I like Marianne.
Yeah.
To Julian Castro and his catchphrase, adios Trump. So I'm just wearing that as a
Homage.
homage
Good
to
for him. Yeah.
I'd love to see him do well, but he's going to...
From his lips to God's ears. Yeah.
He's not going to make it into the top 5. We could talk presidential politics because, you know, it's interesting to see the Democratic Party candidates and their positions on gun safety legislation and how the Democratic Party has evolved to more embrace these issues and the public wave.
They're having more guts.
Yeah.
They realize that 70 to 80% of the people want common sense gun laws. There's some interesting statistics. How many people own guns? Not too many, it turns out. Let's see now. Just looking at this, in recent surveys, roughly 70 to 80% of Americans said they do not personally own a gun, and a majority said that nobody in their household owns a gun. So there are not that many gun owners. On the other hand, super gun owners have an average of 17 guns each. They own half of the guns in the United States. Now, they're nuts, but we can't build policy around a bunch of nuts, NRA nuts.
I just had this epiphany. It's kind of like gambling when it comes to owning
Hoarding.
a gun like that.
Hoarding, yeah.
Well, it's the idea that, you know, if you're in the majority, you don't own a gun, but if you're concerned, then you buy a gun, and it kind of makes it acceptable. It's like that first tattoo. It's like, okay, I want to get other ones, and you get more interested in them. And
First one's free. First one's free.
And I have to say, once again, I've got no problem if you've got an interest in guns.
Or tattoo.
Or tattoos.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm safe. You know, that my kid
Your kid is safe.
That my kid has a long and healthy life and is not gunned down in a random act of violence because of the accessibilities of assault weapons.
The tax on this whole thing from guns, let's just, you know, the physician who was in Odessa, who was bragging, not bragging, but he was proud of the work that his hospital had done after the shooting. He said, yeah, we were all primed, you know, we had the cots ready, we had enough blood, and we worked really well. He said, you know, this is what you have to do at times like this. He was a soldier in Iraq, and, you know, he helped perform magnificently, I'm sure, in the field as a ER doc. But I mean, if the cost of this for everyone, I mean, if every hospital has to have this sort of readiness, right, we've just lost the damn narrative.
No, agreed. And let's talk about another issue. While we're on the subject of ammunition, and it goes back to the graphics that we just saw. Assault weapons, semi-automatic and automatic weapons, they have larger bullets than a handgun. And so they do much, much more damage to a body when they pass through it. I mean, you know, come on, you've seen it on OPB where they or the show Mythbusters where they shoot a gun through a pig, a gelatin that is akin to a body, the thickness of a human body, and you just see this burst.
Explosion.
I mean, it just as soon as it hits, it just blah, and you get holes like what we saw earlier tonight versus a nice clean one from a handgun. You hear what I'm saying? Or a rifle shot where you have about one shot, it goes through you. You have a smaller caliber gun, ammo. So once again, what are these doing out in society? Why are we even talking about this?
I know. Crazy. Do you remember
common sense gun safety legislation? That's what we're talking about here.
Tasmania decided in the 1990s to get rid of guns because someone had killed 23 or 24 school kids. So they got rid of the guns in Tasmania. And throughout Australia, the guns, you know, they got rid of them. And now the shootings in Australia are about zip. I have some of the statistics of gun deaths in the United States versus other countries, and we are just awful compared to all the civilized or industrialized countries.
You know, hey, and we were talking about that earlier as well, and that is, you know, let's say that you do put a ban, and people have to start to, they make them illegal to have or own. You're going to have a difficulty prying them out of people's hands. I mean, let's just face it. And it's a Second Amendment issue. People feel strongly about their guns. It just ain't going to happen.
Well, hey, come in. What's my view? What's my way on how to do it?
Well, I would assume the buyback would...
That in part, but also do not make any guns. Just say,
stop making them. Now, agreed.
And no import of these guns.
Once you're in a hole, stop digging.
Right.
You know, stop adding to the volume of the accessibility
Absolutely.
issues.
Straw buyers, too.
Right.
There's this,
Right.
so Cruz calls up, well, he remarks on Chicago's recent gun deaths, you know, this last week, and we had 41 people shot and 7 fatally shot. And Cruz, Senator Cruz from Texas says to Lori Lightfoot, gun laws don't work. You've proven that. And Lori Lightfoot, what a comment. She says 60% of illegal firearms recovered in Chicago come from outside our state, outside Illinois, mostly from states dominated by cowardly Republicans like you, who refuse to enact common sense gun legislation. Keep our name out of your mouths.
Ouch.
But yeah, 2/3 of the guns in use in crimes in Illinois too come from Indiana.
That's right.
I mean,
I was watching something earlier today just on that
Yep.
that one point. I mean, you can drive literally 20 miles outside of Chicago and get guns and then bring them back into Chicago
And make money.
and make money and sell them. You know, and some people look at that as the indicator of how gun control laws don't work, gun regulation laws don't work.
They're lying.
I disagree with that 110%.
They're
Here's
intentionally
why.
lying.
That's right. They're intentionally lying to obfuscate the one fact, and that is the fact that 20 miles away from the red zone, you have full accessibility.
In Pence's state of Indiana.
Right. And so it's a difficult issue. I mean, you know, God bless them for trying in an urban setting, in that kind of a setting, to try to regulate gun violence. You know, they have to.
They have to.
They have to. I mean, you know, but...
I agree with Lori Lightfoot, though. You know, in your Republican-dominated states, you know, it's as though we needed more statistics on this. The states that have tighter gun controls have fewer deaths due to guns. This came out about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. CDC has not been permitted to investigate gun deaths. Some representative who's since retired from the House of Representatives said, you know, it shouldn't be done. And recently, well, a couple of years ago, he said, no, I was really wrong to say that. We can't even study how many people are killed by guns? Is that right? I mean,
well, no, that was a conscious strategic move, political move made by the NRA, enacted by their bought and paid for congressmen.
but yeah, this
and
guy,
senators.
but this guy was apologetic after the, you know, he said, oh, I'm sorry about that.
Right. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Yeah.
You know what gives me hope is I saw this video here just the other day of a congressman in Illinois, Republican congressman, going into the whole thoughts and prayers thing about one.
Yeah.
And they said a chant started, and you can hear it as soon as he started saying this thing. Do something. Do something. Do something.
Michael DeWine also. Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, and I think it.
Thoughts and prayers. Screw you and the horse you rode in on.
It just goes to the palatable frustration.
People know what's going on.
They know.
Rapid.
They know that we're being screwed by political interests and corporate interests on this issue, and it's like campaign finance reform.
Yep.
It's like campaign finance reform. You have to deal with the root of the problem, and money in politics is the root of the problem. And look how it's affected the whole regulation of common sense.
Yeah, you're all voting rights and so on too. Gerrymandering is another thing. Thank God for North Carolina. It looks like they're going to have a rollback to gerrymandering this time.
I heard about that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Cool.
Because the problem was that the U.S. Supreme Court had ruled that gerrymandering was okay, basically, in a most recent hearing with the Trump majority,
Yep.
the 5-4 majority.
Yep.
But this is a state issue. This is a state Supreme Court issue. And it's not going to go towards the U.S. Supreme Court. So, because these are voting rights. This is
There was a terrific podcast about the gerrymandering. I think it was what was it? Best of the West. You know, and it was really Best of the Left, and exploring these issues in some detail. I mean, I just terrific. Yeah.
And I know many of our viewers out there, I know that you're smart enough and astute enough to do your homework on these issues and to really understand the frustration that some of us activists have when it comes to common sense gun safety legislation. You know, it's not gun control. I hate the term gun control because, quite frankly, it's like it's been bastardized and redefined, if you will, by the special interests, and it's unfortunate. So I think we just need to, you know, call it as it is: gun safety legislation.
I'd call it gun control, but okay, that's all
Well,
right.
I hate to think that we have to do marketing on this, but I think we do kind of have to do marketing on this because people's reactions, gut reactions, when it comes to the Second Amendment are very strong.
No, okay.
And so we have to highlight what we are. We have to highlight what we are actually doing versus what we want to do. And when what we want is to have, yes, control of the guns. Yes,
You know,
I agree with that.
I feel so sorry for the gun lovers who can't handle the word control. I feel so sorry for them. Thank goodness those mothers who want safety and want the guns to be controlled don't get their way. Oh, poor fevered breath. I mean, both. Anyway, I can't say that, or I shouldn't say that anyway. But I mean, I do not feel sorry for people that, you know, get all fevered about putting guns. Can we see picture number 3 first? Put up the disclaimer and then have people turn. If you don't like bad pictures, don't look at this. But this is a little youngster, and I don't think he's killed, but bad things. And this is what happens. So if you're going to, you know, I don't care what the hell you call getting rid of items that do that. You call it, you know, magic or gun control or whatever the hell it is, but don't kind of make them, you know. This is just, well, anyway,
But,
words
you know,
fail me.
No. I think, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. What we're talking about here is the fundamental debate within the Democratic Party of how quickly and what we do next, and whether or not we do it, how we go about it, change. And, you know, you've got people like Warren and you've got people like Bernie that are saying we need to start fresh and we need new ideas and we need a new approach.
I think both of them are opposed to it. Yeah.
And I
Beto
appreciate,
too. Yeah.
Beto too. You know, and I appreciate the heck out of that approach. You know, and there's pros and cons to it. You know, now there's the other approach to this, and that is one could call the political reality approach. The idea is
centrist approach?
A centrist approach. And, you know, that is slowly but surely through legislation taking away, getting this stuff implemented. Because we don't have the common, unfortunately, we don't have the common public will to make that full control, to make that full change.
No, Moses.
I just think
Moses. We don't have the control because we don't try to exert the control. If you're going to put it on the ballot, you know, for gun control, or gun safety, whatever the hell you want to call it, it would pass. 80 to 90% of the people want it. But it doesn't get on the goddamn ballot because our politicians are craving, you know, they owe obeisance to NRA. But, I mean, they know that if it got on the ballot, it would pass in a heartbeat. That's why Mitch McConnell doesn't want to bring it to the goddamn Senate, because he knows it's going to pass quicker than anything. Don't you think?
Yes, I have to agree with you, Caleb. I do have to agree with you. Because you know what, I'm sitting here, as many of you know, I've been a stalwart for campaign finance reform.
Yep.
And I've just had my whole campaign finance reform argument thrown back into my face when it comes to gun control.
In what way, sir? Tell me.
In the fact that, you know what, money is the root of all evil, and to make that change, you have to make fundamental change. And that was the way that we decided to go about it in the county, in Multnomah County, and in the city of Portland. We have to just change the current system. And we got that implemented, campaign finance reform, caps and definitions and transparency issues, both in the city of Portland and in Multnomah County. And here in 2020, there's going to be a ballot measure that will allow for the Constitution, that will change the Constitution, Oregon Constitution, to allow for for contribution limits.
Your guest last month was Dan Meek. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He was great.
My point of all of that is that we had.
You had to throw over the system, not a mild changes, not fuzzy.
Mild changes could have happened, but we decided to go big.
Good.
And I'm being pensive here because I'm thinking out maybe I may have to think about it a little bit more, and then we'll see how I come out in 30 days after the next show.
What?
But I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I do
well,
respect
also,
that.
you know, the thing that gets me, once again, thoughts and prayers. We can't do anything about it. It's God's will. You know, nothing we can do. Onion headline, you know, the humorous magazine says, Americans say they cannot understand how this happens, you know, that people kill themselves so much in the only country in the world that it happens to.
Right.
You know, it's,
Right.
yeah, I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers.
Well, you know, I did want to mention one thing too. While I pull it up here, is
Great.
that there was some of the kids that were survivors of Parkland.
Yes,
David Hogg.
wonderful people.
Yeah, some.
Emmy or whatever her name is, yeah.
Amy
Yeah,
Gonzalez,
yeah,
if
Emmy,
her name
a
was.
wonderful person, yeah.
Emmy Gonzalez. And they started a group called March for Our Lives, and to raise awareness about gun safety legislation and the challenges facing the youth and such. And they were very active here in Oregon, because Oregon being a state where that kind of stuff is
I didn't know
occurring.
that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I was very surprised. They were down there pushing hard at the state level during the legislative session. The kids were. I mean, all these are high schoolers, basically.
They're saints. They are saints. They are saints.
That is so cool. I have to respect the fact that they felt so strong about that issue that they would go and try to be involved in the outcome.
Incredibly important.
Yeah,
Incredibly
exactly.
important. I mean, wonderful thing. I mean.
So I guess
great.
what they, you know, one of the things like they're looking for not necessarily I wouldn't call it incremental change, but they have a couple of things that they would like to see happen. You know, like changing the purchasing age of a gun from 18 to 21.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty common sense. You know, it's like. I could agree to that. I think that right there.
I'd go to raise it, but no, but that's fine. I mean, I think Florida tried to do that, but the NRA squashed them in their head. That was a couple of years ago, after the Parkland thing. Oh, you can't lower the age of buying these things. You know, I have the list in my hot little hand here, the top 10 recipients of NRA contributions. So the Senate, the top recipient of NRA contributions was John McCain. He received $7.7 million. Richard Burr was $7 million, and the top House representative was French Hill, got $1 million. Kenneth Buck, these are all Republicans, of course, got $800,000 and so on too. But one of the major reasons why we don't have any movement in the Senate is a lot of the senators get a hell of a lot of money. Bill Cassidy, $2.8 million. Todd Young, $2.8 million. But Rob Portman, we think of Rob Portman as being sort of stable kind of guy. Well, he's stable because he's sitting on a $3 million fund. I mean,
and this is
gift
all money. This is all money
from NRA.
From the NRA,
Yeah.
or from gun manufacturers in general.
Joni Ernst, no, NRA contributions. It probably was bundled from gun manufacturers too. But $3 million for her, and she got a ration of you-know-what too in Iowa recently.
Right. And so let's face it, what are they going to do? Are they going to listen to the money, or are they going to listen to us? Well, the
let's
track
see.
record is that they're listening to the money, especially the GOP, the Republican senators, the Republican congressmen. You know, so
even Mitch now says, you know, if Trump wants to change the law some way, he should tell me, and I'll be happy to propose it. Right. You think You think Trump is going to roll back gun rights?
Oh, of course he would.
He will?
No, gun rights. No. He's not going to.
No.
That's part of his base.
Oh, let's see. I'm thinking about it. No, I really am seriously thinking about it. It's like Lucy and the football, right? I mean,
And see what we have on the show. What we have up there right now is a photograph from the social media of the shooter, the young Caucasian man from
El
Dayton.
Paso?
From El Paso.
No, was it Dayton?
Is it Dayton or El Paso? Point being is that, you know, we're creating a tinderbox.
I think you're right. I think it is Dayton. Yeah.
And Trump is stimulating it through his white nationalist talk and his
fear. Be afraid. Be very afraid. They're out to get you. Don't trust the media. They're all lying to you.
They're being legitimized. You know, they're trying to be legitimized. You know, and it's amazing to me. You know, it's like these are people that less than 75 years ago, our grandparents fought a world war against. When it comes to those fascists, when it comes to those white nationalists, when it comes to those racists, when it comes to those Nazis, that are out there. And, you know, and just on a side note, that's why I fully support Antifa, the idea that Antifa, anti-fascist, and a fascist equals a Nazi. We fought a world war against those Nazis.
Whoa.
You know,
How about
no problem
the
with
soccer? You're thinking about taking over the soccer? It's kind of cool. They have Antifa get-togethers and watching the soccer games. I have no problem with Antifa
I mean,
at
you
all.
know, with all of with all of these supposed violence that the left has done against, you know, people, innocents in these confrontations, word is coming out now that it was, you know, Andy Ngo was
oh, he's harmless. He's harmless.
And he was ingrained within the Proud Boys.
He was videotaped.
And there was videotape. There's audio of them saying that they actually hit a guy with a hammer when they were disputing the fact. So point is, if you're going to be on the side of one or the other, I will go with the non-Nazi
Both
side.
sides on both sides, yeah.
You know, I think you can safely, I think that's a safe bet to be against.
Hey, you know, caller,
and it comes right back all into the gun situation.
Callers, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, if you're pissed off, feel free to give us a call. The number here is 503-650-0198, 650-0198. And, you know, if we're not pissed off, we're just not goddamn paying attention.
No, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and it's really easy right now with all of these shootings, with all of this gun violence, to get a nerd to it, to get immune or numb to it all. I mean, you know, I remember at Parkland, you remember Shady Hook Elementary, you know, the very first one with those kids. As soon as they killed kids, and the media, and we allowed it.
Thought we'd do it, yeah.
That just opened the floodgates to the attitudes that we have now, as far as people towards these mass shootings. I mean, how many people watching this show knew that 2 days ago a kid in Portland got shot? You know? It's just like we're getting numb, and it's unfortunate. It used to be a really big deal, and people's lives. We used to have more respect for people's lives.
Do you remember after Parkland, there was this, Rubio was in a town hall with the parents of some of the kids there, and a lot of kids were there. And Rubio says, no, what do you want in, you know, the way of guns? And they said, well, you know, we want to restrict this, we want to restrict this, we want to restrict this. And Rubio says, oh, you can't have it. You know, if you're going to restrict all these things, you're going to restrict automatic weaponry. And everyone cheered. And I, in Hawaii was cheering too. And he said, oh, you know, I guess you know, yeah, that's what we want. We don't want people to be able to pull a trigger and kill 20 people at a whack. I mean, numbnuts, really. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, let's compare it. Here's an interesting comparison to a situation that I had heard of, and that is comparing the gun violence situation to how we dealt with cars and safety within cars and the death of hundreds or thousands of people a year because they would fly out of unsafe cars. And they called it it was a very strong word of deaths. You know,
Wheel of death or something, I don't know.
You know, my point is they really emphasized the fact that this was killing so many people, and so what did society do? They, over 10-year period, 15-year period, increased the safety mechanisms or the safety measures when it came to cars.
Do you know who did this? Two parties. You know, there are two parties, the Republican Party and Democratic Party.
Right.
Who tried to bring these things about and who did? Republican or Democrat? Democratic. Who opposed it every goddamn step of the way? Republicans.
Right.
I mean,
I was going to say Ralph Nader.
he was
did have
great.
something to do with that.
Oh, he
when
did.
It came to Corvair
Unsafe at any speed. No,
right.
he did a lot of that.
There was just more outrage when it came to those types of killings, when it came to those kinds of deaths. In societal deaths, and there was more of an attitude of trying to resolve it and fix it because it's such an obvious problem, and so that's what we did. We didn't allow for these unsafe cars to continue. We mandated through government regulation safety measures so that you would be safer than a car. It's no different when it comes to regulation and gun safety safety legislation.
You know, there's an old statistic that I recall it as being true 5 years ago, and certainly more than true now. We've had more gun deaths since Martin Luther King was shot and killed in this country than died in all wars America has had, all of them. And, you know, more people shot and killed in our land here. by people wielding weapons and all the armies and so on too. Right. You know, that we fielded. Even the Civil War. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, it's unfortunate too that we as a society have kind of just inert ourselves, have numbed ourselves to that outrage. That,
yeah, I think we should listen more to the Parkland kids, right?
I agree.
Their anger, and too.
Well, and let's face it though, I think there is a sea change occurring.
Hope so.
And I venture to say within the 2020 cycle, election cycle, we're going to take over the Senate. It's looking very, very obvious to me that the Democratic Party will take over the U.S. Senate next year in the November election.
Hope so.
Unless Russian hacking and involvement in our election systems blows everything up, but that's another story.
People hate Trump so much. It's just, oh my God, good.
The poll numbers are pretty obvious right now. I mean, you know,
Yep.
50, every single Democratic Party presidential candidate down to
the top 6 or something,
the top 6 or 7 would beat Trump.
Even Biden said recently, you know, he was asked, "Can you beat Trump?" And he says, "I think anyone could beat Trump." I mean, but if you look at what's 538.com, which is Nate Silver's site, Trump is underwater by 13%, and that is, I mean. It's the favorables for him are like 40%, and the unfavorables are like 54, something like. It's a huge change. No one has ever recovered from this. But this guy is such a jerk. One of the things that really, this is kind of a cool letter I saw in Democratic Underground. And this guy said, I think it's a guy, it might have been a woman. "I don't want to wear a bulletproof vest every time I go out shopping, or to the concert, or to a movie theater, or to a restaurant or a coffee shop, or to school. I don't want to learn combat wound training. I don't want to buy any bulletproof clothes or backpacks. I don't want desks that can double as a shield. I don't want to go to school in a classroom that resembles something of an underground bunker. I don't want to know what teachers are packing heat. I just want your freaking weapons out of the goddamn streets and out of the hands of lunatics and racists, that's it. There can be no negotiation on this, and if you still support this after all the death and destruction we've witnessed, then you're part of the problem." That's pretty powerful, isn't it?
That is pretty powerful. That is really powerful. Well, and it takes that type of bringing it down to a individual level.
Like the Parkland kids, too.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
You know, they're inspiring. That's inspiring, you know, to have gone through the credibility of having gone through such a horrendous attack gives them a moral authority that is sorely lacking with our politicians right now when it comes to this issue. I mean, and these are just teenagers that are being motivated or spurred, or young adults. They're 18 now, but to do something. To do something about the gun side, about violence.
Marv, can we take a picture at 11? And this was the El Paso guy, and what a jerk! I mean, what a jerk!
Wow.
I mean, and he's in there, and he's got his earmuffs on, and so the kind of protecting himself from the sound. I mean, you know what? Let you know now. Try number 12. These are his victims. And, you know, we could show pictures of them if we had them of holes being blown through their hands, through their heads, through their hearts, through their legs, and so on, too. But, you know, these guys certainly, I mean, just assholes. Well, like, racist assholes, the shooters. And another one is number 15. I think the next one, 15, is this is the Odessa thing that happened recently. And the Odessa one, too, is where the cops, the SWAT comes from that, but 15 EMTs working out. This is where the Odessa doctor said, you know, we were really prepared and we can all do this. You know, we haul them through. No, I mean, as much as you can, people died in that and are afraid of that, and the cost of the expense. And as you say, your daughter or my kids or grandkids, you know, worried about shooter drills and so on. This kind of fear is just goddamn stupid. It's just stupid.
Well, it's preventable.
Preventable, but it's kind of like, you know, you have a big troll who's on a hill who comes down at night and kills 20 people, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Oh, we should do something, but no, we just let it go on and on. Maybe 20 trolls now. This is pretty much exactly what's going on with this thing too. And we kind of, as you say, we grow inured to it. We don't notice it as much. We think, oh, maybe it's not. Maybe I can worry about other things. No, this is a time to worry about this stuff now. So.
No, it is, and especially when it's gotten down to that level where it's affecting school children the way it is. I mean, you know for a fact in elementary schools they are doing drills for active shooters. You know, they are making these kids fearful
Paranoid, yeah.
and paranoid.
PTSD, as you said.
Yeah, that's where that PTSD comes from, is when your fear of the unknown is ingrained in your head.
You can't, yeah, I evaluated this guy on Friday, this last Friday, today is Tuesday. And he has PTSD, and I said, you know, what started your fear? And he said, well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started getting incredibly fearful of guns. He said, you know, you look at what's on TV and so on, too. And so he can't go into crowded areas much. Now, you may think that's trivial. It's not. This guy probably is more sensitive than most. But if people are fearful and they can't go into crowds when they get on a bus, they don't associate with others, they, you know, avoid life circumstances, you know, it just really seals them off. But this kind of fear is so omnipresent. And then you have bozos like Trump who said, oh, I can spare you the fear. Trust me, that's okay. Yeah, we're going to, you had mentioned, too, the, under Reagan and so on, the militarization of police officers, police departments.
Yeah.
One of the things that Reagan did, too, was he sent a lot of military equipment to large cities and so on, too. So, I mean, it turns out that I don't want, you know, huge bazookas and
Well, part of that was, too, because of the budget crunches at the local level for these police forces.
Yeah.
And they would be given, this program was a federal program to be able to send down old equipment from the federal level, from the military down to the cops that would need it. But unfortunately,
even new equipment. Even new equipment.
Yeah. And then it started this whole militarization of
Yeah.
the police force from just.
Well, I think
It's like the SWAT cars. I mean, the SWAT. All counties do not need a SWAT training program. You know.
although I'm glad that they have it. Yeah,
God bless them for being here. And
yes,
I would
Marv.
want them around.
Yeah.
But the point is that there's a lot of military hardware that was sent down to local police force
Who did not know how to use it. Yeah.
and yeah, might not have used it or kind of. I mean, it kind of gave them almost permission to use it.
Well, you have it. What the hell? You know?
I mean, it's like, you know, you've seen those big tanks that they do with the long poles sticking out to ram the doors.
Yep. Yep. Well,
I mean, I just wonder about the security.
well, does it breed that sort of overreaction? Is what you're suggesting, and certainly the fear too. You know, you put people in. Well, one of the things Betrayus did too, I think, in Iraq was remove the dark glasses so you could see people in the eyes, and that sort of removed the fear for a lot of people. You know, there was a human there at the end of it. It's dehumanizing, I think. So, what do you think? I want there to be small magazines that is no more than 6 bullets in a rifle or in a handgun, and that's it. No automatic weaponry. No more made in this country. No more imported. And if people import it or make it, then send them to prison for decades. Right? I think Bill Barr suggests that, hey, you know, maybe we can impose the death penalty on people with mass shootings. That's not going to stop people from doing that. A lot of them are intentionally going out anyway. Right. You know, they got a bad day, like this guy Atar. Right. He had a bad week, and so he took a lot of people with him, 7, I guess.
And it's unfortunate, too, that you've got this generation or this subculture of disenfranchised young white men that are susceptible to this type of grandeur, you know, this illusions of grandeur and going out with a big bang just like they do in their video games.
Unfortunately, they also don't have jobs. They don't have much of a hope.
That's a very, and I'm so happy you brought that up. And that's another issue about that is because of the economy and the squeezing out and of the middle class into the lower classes and the higher classes.
As Tom Frank says, the reason why your community looks more and more dingy every day is because money is being taken out of the local economy and going up to the top few percent. Jobs are not available now as they used to be, not good union jobs as well, but just they're not available, and too many politicians are Republicans and they don't care for jobs. Once again, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think I am. Who cares more about job building in this country, Republicans or Democrats? Any guesses? Or?
Right now, it's the Dems.
It's always been the Dems. Yeah, I mean, Franklin Delano, FDR, you know, the New Deal and so on. Who supports union wages and you know, geez, who doesn't want all the money to go to the very top? It is the Democrats. Thank God, bless their hearts.
And you know, even with with labor's challenges of late in attempts at union busting and right to work, quote, right to work legislation.
For less, right to work for less.
Right to work for less.
Tom Hartman, yes.
You know, this last Labor Day, kind of reminds people how strong and how necessary these unions are. You know, the need for just the ability to be able to have a day off, you know, and without worry.
Right. Well, they're the reasons for a 5-day work week, eight-hour working day. Tom Hartman was just broadcasting from Chicago. I was listening to the podcast today. And yeah, he was talking about union jobs and you know, they're really nice. You work hard, you learn a lot, and you have a good job that can pay your way, pension and so on too. But that's not what Republicans want. I mean, if a lot of them are just invested in minimum wage or no minimum wage at all. Why? You know, it's Clarence Thomas, for instance, says maybe we should do away with child labor laws. What the hell? You know, sure, why not?
Crazy. That is absolutely crazy. You know, I was talking to somebody as well that had recently got a job in Multnomah County, working for the county, and it's even though it's an entry level type of a job, there's room for advancement.
Good.
And there's opportunity for a career, and there's an opportunity to be able to have the full arc, be able to retire, because you have as part of your union contract, you have a 401k or it's savings or whatever.
For savings, I'm sure, of some kind.
Savings,
Good.
You know, you have health care, you have. That used to be what we aspired for back in the day when you grew up, wasn't it? I mean, the idea that you had a good family wage living, you know, job that paid your bills and allowed
Maybe
you
not a trillionaire. Maybe not a trillionaire. Yeah. You don't have to invest in the lottery.
Yeah, exactly.
Investing in the lottery.
You know, but. Well,
anyway, here we are. Walmart,
Here we are.
Walmart, however, is pulling out bullets in guns, handguns. They're not selling any more handguns.
And as of yesterday, Kroger will be telling people that they can't open carry in their stores. So something.
Walmart, too, is asking people not to bring guns into the stores.
Yeah, so at least we can shop without fear.
Okay. I mean,
Kroger's. I won't go into Walmart. I'm sorry.
yeah, me too. I've been in it, I think, once or twice, but only because there are no other stores around. But I do not like Walmart. At 10 o'clock at night, all the money is being sent off to Arkansas, the Waltons, who certainly don't need it. But anyway, on gun control, I think we're on the same side here.
I know we're on
Yes.
the same side.
Side of also 80 to 90% of the American people. If it's on the ballot, it goddamn passes.
Well, you know, and I'd like to end on that one note, and that is, I really feel that if you were to get an initiative on gun safety legislation on the ballot in 2020, 2022, here in the state of Oregon, you're right. It would be the test. It would be the test like what we did in campaign finance reform in the county and with the city.
Which you passed.
We passed by a huge margin.
What was this good for you?
80 plus. I mean, you know, 89% with one, 87% with the other. I venture to say you're going to see percentages in the 60 to 70% plus with this type of initiative.
Yeah, as I said to the politician up there in the northern, do something, do something, do something. Yeah.
And the more deaths that occur, the more shootings that happen, the more media coverage or lack of media coverage that we get of them will just get us that much closer.
We have more pictures, but that's okay. They're even more gruesome. You know, but I'm glad we had a chance to show some of those pictures.
I do too. I am glad in the fact that, you know, hey, that's the reality, folks. That's the medical reality of gun violence.
Point a gun at someone and pull the trigger. It's not, oh, they get up and they walk away, or, gee, I'm defending myself against, you know, a horde of, no, your kids are getting killed, moms are getting killed. You know, just, and also crazies are thinking that, yeah, they're going to do this. Go out with a flurry, with a bang. But yeah, I agree also about jobs. We have to return jobs.
Oh, hey, listen, I know we have like 30 seconds.
We do. What's coming up?
I wanted to tell you.
Good.
I am going to Iowa this month in September, at the end of September, to go to a presidential, the steak fry.
Oh, boy.
Which all the presidential candidates go to politic.
Good.
And so
you want to come back and tell us about it?
I will come back and tell you all about it. It's gonna be my little brush.
Take pictures.
with history,
Take pictures.
Political history. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So is all the Democrats are going to be there, do you think? Or
Oh,
the major
yeah, all
ones?
10 of the major candidates, and maybe even the other 10 too, you know, will be there trying to, it's Iowa, it's
Right.
primary season, you know. They, yeah. So I'm going to make
Exciting. Are you going to sleep during that time when you're there? Probably going to be not sleeping. Hey, Moses, thanks so much for coming. That was great.
Hang it in